The result is a dull under anime. Under anime. What is this review? MyAnimeList, the review site that literally no one in the community takes seriously. Tonight, I'm going to get my heart absolutely crushed and look at some bad reviews for some anime that I personally really enjoy. So that's Death Note, Re:Zero, Hunter x Hunter, Steins and Konosuba. Just a heads up, there will be spoilers, so if there's a show you haven't seen on here, just skip to the next show by clicking the next section on the progress bar right at the bottom. So let's go. Let's start off with Re:Zero. Never seen a more arrogant, dumb, annoying MC. Yes, one complaining about Subaru. This guy, I think they meant guy here, this guy honestly makes Kirito look 10 times better. I mean, it's like he's a flawed human being who makes mistakes, but okay. It is beyond belief how stupid this MC is. You line up every loudmouth MC in is anime history, and this guy will annoy those guys. Hours of my life wasted, and I don't plan to waste any more. I don't want to write anymore, but Mal tells me to write longer, which will only make the review saltier. I mean, going into this, I had so much hope. Kind of a fresh concept to the isekai genre. Anime design is good, but I don't understand why the writer had to make the MC so insufferable. Okay, it looks like they've seen 12 of the episodes. I don't know what to say there. I like the Subaru is a more accurate depiction of what someone like me or some guy who doesn't go out a lot and how he would actually behave if he was transported to an isekai world, and I thought that was really interesting, but it seems like the only complaint here is that Subaru is annoying. Overused AF, premise and plot. How? Okay, I've literally never seen a premise that's exactly like Re:Zero's, like combining an isekai with a psychological thriller and the entire restart thing. I've never seen that before, but okay. Suffering is no character development. Yes, but he gets character development despite that. It kind of pushes him towards that. Potentially invincible ability gives the show no sense of danger. MC is just too dumb to realize. Yeah, you do realize that there are other ways to give a show stakes than just one of death, right? Like, that's what Re:Zero does. There are worse things than death. Ripped off Yusuke's Spirit Gun, Elfin Lead Vectors, Unseen Hands, Berserk's God Hand, Unique. I mean, I'm sorry, I haven't seen any of these, so I might be a bit biased towards this, but even so, those are just details. That doesn't actually have much to do with the entire story as a whole. The dumbest, most annoying, retarded, useless, autistic MC you'll ever see. Wow, people really seem to hate Subaru. Reason of suffering. Trying to get my waifu to like me because it's my otaku fetish instead of bothering to find more about the world he went in. Yeah, that's not really a bad thing. Because he is an otaku. You can't really criticize the show for that, because that's the entire point of his character. He isn't someone who goes out a lot, and like that's kind of the point of who he is, like how an actual indoor shut-in would act in these situations. And of course he'd get overly attached to someone who was the first one to show him acts of genuine care and compassion when he's in this unfamiliar world, and their life is in danger. But okay, could actually resolve things with resets and would learn more on it based on failures, but still act silly just for the sake of it while not caring about his previous world. I mean, in order to reset, he needs to die. I feel like that's kind of a big deal. You can't just go, oh, whatever, I failed, I'm just gonna reset. I mean, it's not an easy thing to just die. Like, even if you know you're gonna come back, you can't just die. Story 1. This story is so boring. There's no sense of danger. Everything can be fixed with the plot sword. Too lazy, such a lazy writing, and worse, unoriginal. I still don't get how this is unoriginal. Like, all you provided was this, But like, those are just random details. They have nothing to do with the story as a whole. Art 4. The art is decent, I gotta admit it. It's the only good thing about the show, and it's still bad. White Fox isn't very good, to be honest. They're just somewhat a popular studio. Sound 2. Cool first ending song. Soundtrack was meh okay. Everything else, OP 1 and 2, and ED2 is trash. Character 1. Now this. The author needs to go out and socialize with people, cause damn, the MC is the most unrealistic character of all time. It looks like the author wants to fool people, cause this show is basically trying to act smart for the sake of being smart, and the author did a good job of brainwashing people. I mean, I don't know about you, but I found Subaru to be a pretty realistic character. I mean, like, yeah, he acts weird, because he got transported to an unfamiliar world and doesn't know how to interact with people in his own world. So, I wouldn't really call that unrealistic. Enjoyment. 1. It's so boring and slow, especially in the mansion arc. The author did a piss poor job by not doing anything spectacular, everything so average. I honestly don't think I'll ever give this a second watch ever again. Overall, 1. Hot garbage. Don't watch this unless you're a masochist. Let's do Death Note next. The anime was decent the first time I watched it. The first half was alright, but once they replaced one of the main characters, the anime went from a 4 to a solid 1. Huh? I only say that because unfortunately, MyAnimeList doesn't have any ratings below a 1. But you gave it a 3! I don't get it. The characters lack reason for their actions, and there is no character development at all? What? Okay, let me explain something a little bit about character development. It doesn't always mean that it's gotta go up. Sometimes characters can go down, and that's what happens with Light. Like, simplified character development, Light starts off at a certain place, but then, as he kills more and more people, he slowly loses sight of what his original goal was, and, well, the end happens. That's the character development. And even if there was no character development isn't necessarily something that you absolutely need to make a good show. Like, there are plenty of movies and anime that have no character development that are still good. Okay, continuing on. Death Note was such a cool idea, but it was so poorly implemented that I sincerely believe this is the worst anime that I've ever seen. Whoa. That's a bit of a big statement. Death Note is cool to watch for the first half, but only once. The second time you watch it, if you're anything like me, you will begin questioning the motives for every character, except you'll quickly learn there is no motive for any character. I mean, a big motivation for most of the characters is to stop Kira, because, you know, he's killing people. That's a pretty big reason. And Light, like how many times has Light gone on huge monologues about how imperfect the world is and that he needed to be its new ruler? Like, I'm pretty sure literally the first episode established that very well. But okay, the basic mindset of the characters can be described as this. Haha, my name is Light. I got book that kills. I'm sorry, I got it. Haha, my name is Light. I got book that kills people. Haha, I killed one guy. Haha, now I'm a psychopath, even though I used to be a genius. My name is Misa. The thought of death makes me wet. I love Light, so I'm gonna kill who he tells me to. My name L. It's a single letter. I chew my nails and I'm an overly edgy kid who never sees the sun. Oh, 10 stars to this review right there. Awesome job, mate. Awesome job. To tell the truth, there are very, very few animes that I really disliked like this one. Actually, dislike is a euphemism. I should say, I loathe it, and for good reasons. I know lots of people think Death Note is one of the masterpieces of the anime manga industry, and that is also why I forced myself to watch it till the last minute. But as I was going through this anime, disliking it more with every episode, I really thought that it was probably me not grasping this full subtlety of the story, but by the last episode, I could honestly say that this was simply a smartly presented empty shell. Maybe the manga is better than that, I wouldn't know, as I haven't read it, and to be honest, I don't feel like to. The whole story starts on quite an interesting premise, with a complete psychopathic anti-hero as the lead character and quite twisted protagonists as his main opponents. This could have made for a really thrilling and profound scenario about such issues such as the causes for the existence of evil, the meaning of good and evil, okay, the moral contradictions when dealing with it, especially when in possession of a great power, the balancing between good and evil. How many times are I gonna mention that? Which are all essential philosophic and moral issues that humans have been dealing with for as long as they started asking questions about the reason for their presence on Earth. It could have been interesting to see what a teenage bored by a too easy life could have done with it. Instead, we end up stuck for 37 episodes with a completely immature, if not outright retarded and self-righteous block who can't even realize the quite obvious and naked contradiction at the heart of his actions, despite being described by his surrounding as a brilliant and precocious genius. Well, yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, the entire point of Death Note is that Light wants to cleanse the world of evil. He wants to be the god of the new world, basically. But in the process of doing that, he becomes the very thing that he swore to get rid of. That's kind of the point of Death Note. In this rage to exterminate bad people from Earth, he almost never paused to ponder his own resorting to criminal means to achieve his aim. That's the point! Oh my god! That's the point! That's the exact point of the show. The point that he never considers that because he himself becomes the thing that he swore to get rid of. That's the point of Death Note, and you're criticizing that. If he had been as smart as said, it shouldn't have taken more than a minute to realize that his acceptance of criminal means to accomplish a good cause, quote unquote, means that good and bad aren't completely distinguishable, and that they are more often than not simply the two sides of the same coin. Yeah, Light is academically smart. That does not mean that he's a philosophical genius. Like, the fact that he's too busy doing this to actually see that what he's doing in itself is evil, that's the main point of Death Note. That's Light's flaw, because his ego has... never mind. This should have led him quickly to the conclusion that no one is completely evil or saintly, but a mix of both good and bad. And to throw away that stupid death book even before starting to use it. But no, instead he simply sinks always lower into his fanatic, childish, Manichaean mindset to reach the final conclusion that he is the only decent person deserving to live. That's the... Okay, I give up. The last episode is so pathetic that I almost threw up. I couldn't believe I had mustered the courage to watch the whole thing to reach such a dumb end. My overall feeling was that of an absolute hoax and huge waste of time. Honestly, don't get fooled around by the apparent complexity of the plot itself, in which two parties are seemingly engaged in a chess-like life-size game. They are not. Okay, I mean, that's a pretty big part of Death Note, and it's done pretty well, but okay. The fact is, Light is so simple-minded that L is always 100 moves ahead of him, and this clearly shows in the last episode when Light realizes, finally, that he has made a complete fool of himself from the very beginning. Yeah, I really don't see what it is you're criticizing here. Like, Death Note is a great show, but it does have flaws, but all of these things you're criticizing is literally the point of Death Note. Moving on to Hunter x Hunter. Well, this anime is rubbish. First, the story is something pointless and almost disgusting and offensive at times. Do you want an example? Yes, I do, because I have no idea what you're talking about. At one point, the main character is on a quest to find his father, and DPS is about a gangster... What does DPS mean? Okay, whatever. Is about a gangster criminal gang, which is literally very poorly developed. What? Okay. Crowline? A dead character with nothing. I'm sorry, Crawler is one of my favorite villains. And he's just a dead character with nothing. Phaeton? Literally nothing. Any other member of the gang? I have a power and steal things. Besides a dragged and crappy narrative, nothing makes sense and always introduces new things without explanation. Like Greed Island. I'm sorry, did you just criticize Hunter x Hunter? Hunter x Hunter for not explaining things, because it explains a lot. Sometimes too much. I don't know. Okay, I'm genuinely confused. How is any of this pointless, disgusting, and offensive? Like, please, you said this is an example, but all you've done is say that these characters are poorly developed, which is untrue, because they are very well developed, in my opinion, and your new arc is probably one of my favorites. So, okay, like Greed Island, but it is introduced with explanation. Gon's dad, he made it. I mean, it's that simple. Now the art. It would be good if it weren't what you'd see in any other anime. And also if the designs weren't like a lolly DPS, a clown DPS, Thomas Shelby. What is that? Thomas Shelby literally sucks. Okay, this admit it is good, but I don't like it, and for me, the moments they are used are rubbish characters. Some like Cruella and Kurapika are just empty. Others are boring, like Gon and half of the series, and it goes like this. The only acceptable one is Killua. Well, at least he likes Killua. But even so, he is still uninteresting. If the anime didn't start to decay in script and production, I would give it a 4 for that part. But the tower's DPS, I still don't get what DPS means, was literally almost asleep. The Greed Island shouldn't exist. I'm sorry, all the arcs are all there for a reason. Just because Greed Island didn't help Gon find his father more, it still helped a lot with their training, and one of the most satisfying arcs that I've seen in Hunter x Hunter, purely because of how much they learned throughout it. Like, not everything has to be just plot. But okay. And the Chimera Ant is a poorly made normal shonen bow that by cause of 2% of it is acclaimed. I literally don't know what this guy is saying. Even though the Hunter exam is the best arc, I like the Hunter exam arc, but the best arc? Okay, but well, this anime wasn't for me. Well, at least you admit that. It wasn't for you. It's a boring shonen with something else that made people say it's good, but it gets lost and becomes cliche note 1. Did you just criticize Hunter x Hunter for being cliche? One of the most well-known subversive shonen anime? Yeah, okay. I have heard many times about the anime Hunter x Hunter, and every time, wherever the title of this title appears, only praise and praise for this work sounded, as it deserves. After a while, I myself had the pleasure of evaluating this masterpiece, after which one single question, was it a joke, stuck in my head? If so, then I did not understand the humor. I've seen a lot of anime like this. Some were really interesting and some are better forgotten. I would love to forget this piece of animation. I honestly tried to see at least a bit of what I was promised by numerous reviews, tops and reviews. Yeah, sometimes overhype can do that. It's just better not to get your hopes up, because like if you get your hopes really high and you watch something, sometimes it doesn't matter how good it is and you're gonna be disappointed anyways. Several times I dropped and resumed watching this episode, cherishing a faint hope it will be better further. A couple more episodes and I will see those exciting battles that I've heard so much about. Another episode and the main characters will begin to really open up, change and move on. I mean, Hunter x Hunter is pretty consistent throughout all of it. If you don't like it at the start, you're probably not going to like it by the end. I mean, and there is a lot of this, so I don't know how you didn't see that, but okay. A couple of minutes more and an interesting monologue. I thought at least a word will sound from the mouth of another ripped-eyed character. Yes, powerfully, I was so wrong. It's just a shame. The first thing I want to do is go through the characters, main characters. Gon. When watching the first 30 episodes, I got a clear feeling that the author periodically forgot about this character. But he's the main character. This little boy, super creature, mega talent, 1 in a billion, but that's not the point. From the point of view of the banal logic of behavior, jumps back and forth like a table tennis ball. I'm not totally sure what you're saying there, but okay. At one moment, he does not tolerate murder. At another, with a perky smile, he asks to teach him how to pull out the heart at lightning speed. Yeah, Gon is pretty inconsistent that way, but it's done that way on purpose. It all depends on the context. They literally say this in the show. Gon is inconsistent, but he's consistently inconsistent. That's a key part of his character, and you can't expect a character to act the same way throughout the entire series because it depends on the context and situation and how they've changed throughout the series. Either he can calmly watch the death of other people during the qualifying tournament, then he is turned back from it so that he cannot watch. At certain points he is ready to forgive even a maniac killer that a minute ago he wanted to cut a little girl into pieces with scissors, even if she was not defenseless and in fact was much older than the villain, which he did not know. Then he smears the killer of his acquaintance into mush. The fact that he spared the maniac demolition, that during the whole story arc he blew up people in batches, some of whom were also Ghost's acquaintances, purely for fun, a separate article altogether. Okay, I'm not completely sure what you were saying there, but I think I get it. But again, context matters. You can't just ignore the context of these situations. In one situation, that murderer was actually helping them to train and get better, and in the other one, the murderer killed someone close to him who he actually cared about. I would also like to note as a separate point that his initial motivation to find his father cannot justify the risk to which Gon exposes himself and his friends, since he and his dad are essentially not connected with anything. Yeah, that may be the goal throughout the entire series, but it's not his only goal. Like, there's other stuff that pops up along the way and it changes what he wants to do at that moment. Like, it's not like he just has one thing that he wants and he only wants that throughout the entire story. Like, characters are allowed to want other stuff as well. And yeah, they aren't connected personally, but that's why Gon wants to meet him, because he's interesting to him. And it's a curious thing. He wants to learn about that. He wants to learn what it's like to be a hunter. At the beginning of events, Gon has no idea what his father is like, other than the fact that he abandoned him as an infant for the life of a hunter. Killua, Gon's faithful friend and partner who shared a similar ailment, his character froze from side to side like a boat in the middle of a storm. Unlike his partner, this ailment is justified by the plot. For the most part, the character is not bad. There's an interesting internal conflict development and in general, a memorable appearance. This character is also remembered for me by the fact that at one point he himself draws attention to the truly incredible number of pianos in the bushes which the main character stumbled upon. Huh? When did that happen? Did that happen? I'm honestly not sure what he's saying. I mean, a lot of this review is really incomprehensible. Maybe you should do a rewrite, or, you know, at least edit it or something. This creation has a rich cast of minor characters of varying degrees of quality, from so-so to damn it, why the story is not about them. Most notable, Kurapika. Hey, I have motivation, character development, rich backstory, and incredible potential for disclosure, and my storyline can be safely turned into a separate series, but I'll probably stand on the sidelines, or rather drop out of the narrative altogether. There was an entire arc dedicated to Kurapika, dude! Like, an entire arc! Like, it wasn't just a couple episodes, an entire arc dedicated. It's called Yorknu. Like, that arc was solely centered on him and his character development. So yeah, they did use Kurapika very well. One character that wasn't used quite enough was Leorio. He did deserve a bit more screen time. Yeah, and here we go, Leorio. When I was a child from the slums, my best friend died of an incurable disease, which prompted me to become a hunter, because for people like me, this is the only doctor with an education.
It's like he's trying to speak to me, I know it!
Again, this seems a bit incomprehensible to me, whatever. To grab a prisoner who is clearly deceiving me and risk the dream of my life, or act smart and achieve the intended goal which I have been striving for from young nails? Madam, my name is Leorio. I think I get what you're saying, but again, context is important. Like, and even if he fails the hunter exam, he can always just try again next year. What are you saying? Which I haven't. Did this guy have autocorrect on or something? Whatever. And there are similar characters here in a wagon, and a small cart from the pretentious head of a dynasty of the world's best assassins to a huge Ant-Man alligator in wrestling tights. This guy didn't surprise anyone. When I saw him, I whinnied for 30 minutes and didn't care about giant cannibal beetles. By the way, do they take clothes? I'm sorry, does this guy speak English? Okay. Logical holes at the level. Even if the devil himself appears for the exam, he has to pass all the tests and he will receive a hunter's license. A few episodes later, the hunter exam is designed to weed out weak participants and prevent the hunter's license from falling into bad hands. No, not bad hands, just incompetent hands. 3 professional killers in the room is probably good people. The one with pink hair is probably just a magician at children's matinees. Occurs so often that it is more difficult to remember the place where the plot begins to follow at least a ghostly logic. Okay, remember the episode where the Queen of Chimeras died? There, the hunters were almost crying looking at her dying body. Serious? Look around, there are noisettes of people which she eaten like seeds and mountains of human skull. Are you sad about her death? Again, context is important. And the king's guard does not matter at all. Only Neferpita was shown from several sides, and the other 2 can only indulge in orgasms looking at how good their king is. Yeah, I admit that episode was pretty weird. Well-staged fights. There were a couple, but I'm not lying, even about 6. But for 150 episodes, this is not enough. I mean, there are plenty of fights that I absolutely love for Hunter. Okay, now the fight of the King of Ants having forgiven the head of the Hunters Association. What abilities have we shown? Yes, nothing but a many-handed statue Netero. And the fact that the King of Ants can tolerate well, and that's it. 0 choreography? I assume you mean choreography. 0 tactics. And in the end, suddenly we are faced with the fact that Killua has a sister who knows how to fulfill wishes. What a twist! Do you realize what it is? Is able to fulfill desires. Desires! That is, you can wish anything. Yeah, I love how you conveniently leave out the part that whenever they use Alaka, people die. So it's not like they can just use them whenever they want to. So the result is a dull under anime. What is this movie? With a lot of potential for horrific performance. There are what? A potential for horrific performance. There are so many jams and missed opportunities in it that there are so many pages for 10 handwritten text from which high marks from viewers and critics seem incomprehensible to me. Well, I know what was incomprehensible to me. This review. And 18 people somehow find it helpful. Oh man, that was so worth reading. That was worth it. Thank you, man. Thank you for writing that. Let's look at Steins Gate next. It took me 9 years to finally force myself to watch Steins Gate. I had been putting it off since the anime looked so dull, and I didn't care much for time travel shows of any kind. But since I had nothing to watch, and it had risen to number 2 on the MyAnimeList charts, I had to at least see what everybody has been hyped about for all this time. And boy, was it the biggest disappointment imaginable. After 10 episodes, I called it quits. No! He called it quits just before it got good. Okay, the show is ostensibly about time travel, but the main time travel plot has very little substance or consequence, and is simply just a setup for a lame harem with sex jokes, childish prattle, and a mad scientist roleplay, all set in one small lab. Time travel is about as important as the pizza delivery or the pool cleaning in a bad porno. Didn't you just say that you didn't care much for time travel shows, but now you're complaining that there's not enough time travel? You have all the typical anime tropes, competing for the male protagonist. No, they are not. Competing for the male protagonist, like, Did you watch the show? Like, none of them are actually really competing for Okabe. Like, even Kurisu at the beginning doesn't really like him that much. From tsundere to moe, there's even a transgender female through the magic of time travel to spice things up. Okay, I really wish this guy watched the rest of the show, because you'll know that there's a reason for this, and it's not just there to be bad stereotypes. Okay. 19 minutes out of a 20-minute episode is nothing but inane, cringe-inducing drivel, the type you'd find in any club-based school anime comedy if all the members were replaced by a mindless harem. Again, why are they calling it a harem just because most of the characters are female? That doesn't make it a harem. They aren't competing for Okabe. There's literally the only romance is between Kurisu and Okabe, and it builds up over the entire thing. That's it. That's all the focus there is, and a little bit of Ruka, but that's her own story. If you've seen ReZero, this is basically a predecessor to that show, and made by the same studio. You see all the most annoying aspects of ReZero laid out in a more primitive form here. Kyoma, the MC, is analogous to Subaru, with the same exact personality traits. His excessive grandstanding, boasting, exaggerated movements, and even disgusting laugh match Subaru to a T. I mean, I love both of these characters, and I can see their similarities. So, yeah, if you don't like Subaru, I guess maybe you won't like Okabe. You have the same lab and Akihabara setting repeated over and over again. I mean, that's where the story takes place. What are you expecting? How is that? Just like the mansion in ReZero after each death. Yes, that's the setting for the arc. There's nothing really wrong with that. You even have the same complete lack of music or music budget of any kind. Okay. One of the reasons I avoided the anime was because of its aesthetic. I mean, I personally loved its aesthetic, but okay. The highly bleached look, zero background music, and Kyoma's long face made it appear like some cult niche show with a time travel plot too complex for me to enjoy. In reality, it's completely the opposite. I don't know if it gets better, or the whole time travel thing ever gets fleshed out in any meaningful way. Yes, it does. But so far, after 10 episodes, which is more than enough to judge it, I was completely bored to death from the very beginning and utterly underwhelmed with its complete lack of depth and lazy attempt at horror. Oh man, why do people find character interactions so boring? I mean, personally, I just love watching characters interact with each other. Genuinely, I mean, it's not like it's directionless. There's still a goal, and they're still making progress towards that goal, so I don't really see a huge problem so long as it's entertaining to watch. It's a kid in an adult's body trying to play mad scientist with a microwave oven while he builds his harem. Each episode is not a harem! Again, this is there for a reason. Like, watch the rest of the show. It's there for a reason. It's not clear if he's even a college student or has any sort of scientific background. He is utterly shocked each time something changes unexpectedly around him because he meddled with the past. You can also easily confuse him by dangling a set of keys in his face, then quickly hiding it behind you. Okay, let's not even talk about the conveniently changing criteria for sending D-mail over cell phone. Well, it's not conveniently changing, like, it's all pretty consistent. If all you want is to watch a vapid slice of life school harem anime in black and white, you are better off picking one of the much cuter looking ones, muting the sound, and reducing your monitor color space to monochrome. Yeah, this guy just seems pretty upset about the entire slice of lifey nature of the first half of the show, which I personally love. But what pains me is that he was so close. He was so close before like everything just got really interesting, and like everything that happened throughout the first half would have made so much more sense. And he just so close. It was right there. Just 2 more episodes, mate. Okay, here is my review for Steins Gate. I will keep it as simple as possible. Art, 3 point. Man, the character designs are terrible. But I like the character designs. Okay, I understand the art style and what's coming to me from watching Steins Gate, but except for Okabe, the rest of the cast could be better looking. No offense to anyone, but Mayuri looks like she has Down syndrome with that face. I mean, Okay? Kurisu white as a ghost, and I don't find that hot? I mean, no offense, but I don't think they're designed to be hot. Like, maybe they're designed to, you know, show their personality and be their own character and that stuff. I mean, I really like the sound designs. I mean, it clearly shows what the characters are like. Okay, sound, 7 point. Alright, the opening and ending song were pretty good. Yes, thank you, it was very good. I would definitely suggest listening to them even if the show was bad. Story, 1 point. Okay, for me, Steins Gate, like, the best part of Steins Gate was the story, so let's see what they have to say. Here's what hit Steins Gate hard. First half of the series wasted so much time. Again, on the surface, it seems like it, but it does so much for the characters that makes the second half work. If it weren't for the first half, again, the second half wouldn't be able to function as well as it does. It's its own build-up. There was like 3 episodes wasted to find the IBN comp, a whole lot of useless talk added, very boring. Just when I thought I got to the second half of the series and it's gonna become thrilling, I find plot holes that ruins the story, and I will explain. Well, yes, you should explain. I didn't see any plot holes. Spoiler, it turns out Moeka was working for CERN, but why would Okabe give some random stranger Moeka that threatened him by taking his picture private contact info in the first place? That's not a plot hole. That's just a dumb decision, and it makes sense in context. And even invite her to club. I wouldn't give a stranger who stopped me in the street anything. Okabe let the wolf in by opening the door. It was really dumb. Again, that's just a dumb decision. That's not a plot hole. First time CERN breaks in, Mayuri was shot dead. Okabe was captured. Why didn't CERN confiscate all the equipment at that point right at the site? CERN was interested in what Okabe has uncovered anyways, hence he was not shot dead like Mayuri. So, okay, that's just because Okabe went back in time before they had the chance to do that. Like, did you not see Suzuha break in with a gun and start fighting them so that Okabe had the chance to go back? I mean, it's not like they exactly had the time. I assume Okabe successfully turns back time the first time after escaping. At that point, Okabe tries to change Mayuri's fate. Okabe runs around. CERN really should have the brain to destroy or confiscate the lab while they are trying to capture Okabe. Yeah, but Okabe's the mind behind all this. Like, if they went to the lab, then it's not going to be as helpful than if they just straight up captured Okabe. In addition, Okabe out in the streets, he's running. CERN got cars. How did he outrun CERN back to the lab? Even by foot giving chase, CERN can always corner Okabe. And they do. Like, did you not see the amount of times they just ran over Mayuri before they even managed to get back to the lab? Okabe is helpless without the lab. This is a giant plot hole because if Okabe remained captured, there wouldn't even be a continuation of the story, you know, or it would just be end of the story. Again, that's not a plot hole, mate. I think you need to understand more about what a plot hole actually is. It's when there's this huge part of the plot that hasn't been explained that should be explained. That's not what this is. Okay, character, 1 point. Characters were all terrible. I will explain that too. Minor spoiler alert. Okabe, big, arrogant, smartass, sometimes funny, but limited. Mayuri, is she 5 years old? Retarded? These are just their personalities! Like, you can't criticize people for their personalities. That's just who they are. That's like me saying, oh, Light Yagami, he's smart, arrogant, and has a big ego. That's a bad thing. I can't, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Ruka, WTH? Yes, I clearly understand her gender changes after the DML incident, but first of all, if her gender changed, why does she look the same? Well, it's because Ruka already looked like a girl. I don't think that's... okay, I would really appreciate it if there was some minor look differences, seriously. But if there were look differences, then it wouldn't have been a surprise to Okabe later. That actually has something to do with the plot. That's not all. Why were Okabe and the Computer Geek turned on when Ruka was cosplaying wearing a dress when she was a male at the time? That's disgusting! I mean, have you been on the internet? Okay, Kurisu, stop acting like a Cinderella to every single little thing. She doesn't. I mean, Kurisu is actually one of the better Cinderellas out there. Because, like, the only time she actually acts aggressive towards Okabe is when he actually does something dumb and stupid, and he actually deserves it. Otherwise, she's just mostly focusing on, like, what they're trying to do in the story. Daru, computer geek, non-stop overused lame hentai jokes, not even funny anymore. I mean, honestly, I found his jokes hilarious, but, like, even so, that's just a small detail. Moaka, can you talk? Stop texting even when you write in front of Okabe, so annoying. Also, stop taking pictures. That's really annoying. Doing that without consent. I would have tossed their ass out if that's real life. Again, these are just their personalities. You can't really criticize them for that. Like, you can't just go, oh, this is a person with flaws. That annoys me. Like, what, do you expect everyone to just be a good person with no flaws? I mean, you're not really making a whole lot of sense. Ferris, is that how you talk? I can understand you talk all moe in the cafe. I can understand. But outside her job, she talk all nyan nyan. WTF? LMAO, am I supposed to think you're cute? Again, these are just their personalities. Susaha, although I can understand why, she feels too hostile to be liked. Does this person accept? Does this person expect like perfect people or something? Like, characters have flaws. You're literally just criticizing these people for having flaws. I mean, that's what human beings are. Flawed. Enjoyment, 1 point. I do not understand how Steins Gate was entertaining. I really tried liking it, but couldn't. First half was slow and too boring. Second half was expecting mind-f, but got none of that. I didn't even care for Mayuri, so honestly, I felt nothing when she died. LOL! What? How do you laugh at someone's death? Even if you don't care about them, that's really insensitive. Like, okay, my final score for Steins Gate would unfortunately have to be a 1. It wasn't epic or enjoyable. Even if the last few episodes of Steins Gate were good, a few good episodes can't save the show. For true epicness and brilliance, I recommend heading on to Death Note XD. I mean, yeah, Death Note is great, but these are two different shows trying to do two completely different things. Death Note is a psychological thriller with a cat and mouse game with these two people trying to outsmart each other. Steins Gate is an emotional human drama with time travel elements. These are two completely different shows with two completely different directions that they're trying to take. Okay, let's finish it off with Konosuba. Well, I started a little while ago in the anime viewing just to be more interested in this aspect of film production, and especially because I started with JoJo, but shh, we will talk about it later when I finished part 5. So, I decided to watch Konosuba. It's 10 small episodes, which have the honorable grade of 8.16 on MyAnimeList and 7 on SC, Sen's Critique is a French site of reviews, which inevitably made me want to see it. It is therefore an anime similar to the style of Angel Beats, which by the way did not appreciate too much, with the famous world after death where you have to beat someone to get by, already not a style that pleases me basic, because I find it quite uninteresting in his talk, what do I have to do with the story of something that can never happen to me, and therefore necessarily the impossibility to share empathy for the hero? I mean, what? Okay, I really don't get this criticism. Pretty much every movie and anime like has stuff happening to the characters that hasn't happened to you yet or might never happen to you. You're pretty much just shunning like 99% of media out there. Okay, so here Kazuma Dead finds himself projected in a universe of medieval fantasy with 3 girls named Aqua, Megumin, and Darkness. The anime does not take itself at all seriously and remains a parody of this kind. Yes, that is the point. For my greatest misfortune. Because in the end, the characters don't really have any stakes. Not really a story that could allow them to become attached to them. I mean, there are stakes. They're just not ones that you'd expect. They have no personality. What? Especially especially the three girls. I genuinely don't get this. They've, like, the main gang have some of the most strongest, most exaggerated personalities I have ever seen. Especially the three girls. So, yeah, okay, I don't know. Darkness may be a masochist, but it's more of a joke than a serious personality. You do realize it can be both. And so, there is its greatest flaw. Indeed, the fact that the characters have no personality prevents any real alchemy between them and any emotional attachment for the spectator. I mean, just because their personalities are used for comedic reasons a lot of the time, it doesn't mean that it's suddenly not their personality anymore. Like, okay, one of the things that I really like about Konosuba is how it integrates its comedy into the very structure of the show. Like, it's not just, hey, let's make a joke here or there. The story is the joke in a way, but it still manages to tell an effective story. That's one of the things I love about it. And the chemistry between these characters is honestly, like, the best part of the show for me. So, yeah, this is kind of the exact opposite. This lack of tragic side is a real problem, because any well-made comedy, it's verifiable, you have to know, has a deeply tragic side. All you have to do is see Chaplin's films to realize that every joke, every gag, every comic situation is just a tragic situation hidden in comedy. But there are plenty of tragic situations in Konosuba. Remember when Aqua, like, defeated the bad guy, but as a result destroyed the wall and landed the team in tons of debt? I mean, that's a pretty tragic situation if you ask me. I agree with Bruno Dumont, my favorite director, and we will talk about Malute, sorry, I don't know who that is, right after. When he says that the comic is only a register, only a scale of the tragic. And so, we go back to Chaplin. In the circus, the history is profoundly tragic. A poor man who will fall in love with a woman who is under the influence of his father and is ill-treated. And this tragic treatment of history is important to be able to make laugh as a kind of rejection of this tragic element. Or in The Kid, where Chaplin gets an orphan and he's going to be separated. Events are treated with tragedy to destroy this tragedy by an outbidding that will be the gag. Okay, I'm sorry, but I have to mostly disagree with this. You are allowed to have serious stories with jokes in them to lighten things up, but it's not exactly a hard rule that says, like, all good comedies have to have some sort of serious backbone to it. Have you seen Mr. Bean? Sometimes stuff is just allowed to be ridiculous, you know? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to have a super serious tragedy in the background in order to make something funny. Besides this lack of tragic side, which does not mean either that if there had been more tragic, there would have been less comedy. On the contrary, there is also a problem in what it says, because yes, thematically it doesn't tell much, or at least nothing good original. I mean, again, Konosuba isn't exactly the deepest show ever, but it still has themes, like one of the biggest ones being that just because you're going to a new world, it doesn't mean that you do an instant reset on your life that makes it so that everything's better. Like, if you still have problems, you're still gonna have those problems no matter where you are. And it shows that because even though he goes to this new world, he still gets all these problems like debt and not being able to go adventuring straight away and instead having to do labor jobs. Because that's not just funny. I mean, it is a joke, but at the same time, it actually shows, yes, you're going to a different world, but it doesn't mean it's all going to be butterflies and rainbows. Like, it's not going to make everything better just because you've gone to a different place. Bad people can still be bad people, you can still be hit with real life, and if you're a crappy person, you're still going to be a crappy person who attracts all these problems. So, yeah. That's pretty original to me, and it's a pretty good subversion of most isekais, and it's actually saying a lot. So, yeah. What's crazy is that we're in a world of magic where it would be possible to have a crazy originality in this world. Stupid stuff with various universes that might have no consistency. But it does have crazy originality. Like, a lot. Who would think of giant frogs coming out during hibernation, and that's the weakest monster, and after it's defeated, they're brought back, and it's a really delicious food. Like, there is a lot of world building in Konosuba that is both really original, really ridiculous and crazy, but at the same time is so entertaining. And yeah, I don't know really how you don't see that, but that's okay. But no, we're still in this city, which by the way, I feel like a stranger because we know nothing about the city. That's why we explore the city. And I think it's too bad. We just wait for something to happen or learn more about heroes. Note also that excessive fan service is useless when it could have been justified simply by talking about the awakening of sexuality in Kazuma. I mean, it kind of does something similar to that. It's just that Kazuma's obviously already been awakened, but it's not like it's just there for no reason. Kazuma's a pervert. That's like part of his personality again, and he makes decisions based on that, and that actually has an influence on the plot. So it's not just there for no reason, it's all there for a reason. Okay, let's come back to the relationship between tragedy and comedy with the film Malote by Bruno Dumont. I'm sorry, like, I feel like this guy's just taking everything way too seriously. It's probably one of the most hilarious films I've ever seen, and it's all because of this mixture of tragedy and comedy. Two registers that mix very well. Again, Konosuba has a lot of tragedy. Like, actually think about what happens in just the first episode. Kazuma thinks someone's in danger, and he jumps in the way to save them, and dies. But it turns out that he didn't save them, and he died for no reason. And the goddess who tells him all this, Aqua, laughs in his face, and in petty revenge, he chooses her as the one thing to bring to this new world, and in turn ends up trapping her there, and now her, a goddess, is stuck in this world, stuck with this weirdo guy, and they're both weak as, and now they need to both defeat the Demon King in order to get her back? That is really tragic and hilarious, in my opinion. So I don't really see how you don't find any of this tragic. So, okay. Indeed, Dumont made it in his film the opposite of Konosuba, and that's why it works. It deals with serious themes such as the love between a poor and a bourgeois. I'm sorry, I don't know what this word is. Transsexuality, social revenge, the insect among the bourgeois, and philosophical research through the search of the Inspector Machine. I'm sorry, I actually don't know what these words are, I'm dumb. And all these themes a serious treatment like that of transsexuality, or on the contrary, in a very comical way, with incest between the bourgeois. This makes it possible to show the correctness of the characters, but also to keep a satirical side. And at the bottom, it is simply just and deep. Konosuba does the opposite. They laugh with everything, which means that after a while we can no longer, and it just gets us drunk, we saturate. Finally, the animation. It is certainly not ugly, but not ultra original. One of the only combat scenes is poorly filmed, poorly mounted, badly cut. Never the anime, I mean, it seemed pretty good to me. I didn't really see how any of this was poorly filmed. Okay. Never the anime tries plans that express something. Never the anime tries to speak through a cinematographic language. In short, it is an anime that poorly manages its comic and therefore prevents any attachment with the characters. It does not bring any reflection or even simply a theme well treated. It does not have an overflowing originality, and above all, in terms of animation and staging, it is far from excellent. I'll never understand why everyone puts him on so well. I'm sorry. I mean, I really don't want to say this, but this entire review just felt really pretentious. Like, fun things are just allowed to be fun. I mean, again, a lot of these things that you're criticizing are there. You just don't really seem to see it. And even if it wasn't the case, not all comedies have to have some sort of seriousness or tragedy behind it all. Like, sometimes things are just allowed to be fun. But again, you're criticizing it for not having things that are there. I just don't really think you see it yet. But yeah, that's just your taste. Okay, that's enough for today. I'm tired. I've had enough. Thank you guys for watching. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next vid. Bye.